I am joined now by the Republican candidate for Labor Commissioner, Luke Farley. Luke, thanks for coming on. Welcome to Flashpoint. Nice to have you.
Ben, pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me down in the Queen City.
Absolutely. A pleasure to have you. First question, if you could write a job description for this job, Labor Commissioner, what would it be?
Keeping workers safe, healthy, and employed. The number one job of the North Carolina Labor Commissioner is to keep our working men and women safe and healthy, to make sure everybody goes home at the end of the workday. But for me, it doesn't end there. I want every worker to have a fantastic job to go to the next day. So that's the number one responsibility of the North Carolina Labor Commissioner.
So as you know, CNBC has said that we're best for business, although I think this year we were number 2. But for a couple of years, we were number 1. We're still up there at the top. But as you know, on the other side of that comes some worker issues. The Observer reports that a worker dies in the state every 10 days. Oxfam America found that North Carolina is the worst state for workers. A spokesperson telling the Daily Tar Heel, the newspaper up at Chapel Hill, if you have the same job in North Carolina that you have in California, you'd be paid much more in California, and you have a lot more protections at work. Even something as simple as if your kid is sick and needs to stay home from school, you can take a sick day and not lose your paycheck. Understanding that the Republican point of view on some of these things is regulations can suffocate a business and you don't want to have over-regulation. Is there a point to be made there? Do the 4 million workers of North Carolina deserve more protections?
Well, there's always more we can do to improve things for our working men and women in this state. But I believe the very best way to improve conditions for workers in this state is to create a hot job market. I'd ask anybody, think about the times in your own working life when you were best able to negotiate with your employer for a higher salary, better benefits, better leave time. That was when you had a hot job market. And so one thing we can do above everything else to empower workers in this state is create a hot job market, create demand for workers, because when workers are in demand, they've got power and leverage over their employer.
Your opponent says that the Labor Department right now is woefully understaffed, and they do some important work, whether it's in elevator inspections or amusement rides. Or do you agree with that assessment? Is the department understaffed?
I think the department needs to be fully staffed. Okay. Absolutely. The best thing we can do to protect workers in this state is to make sure we have a fully staffed department. And so as Labor Commissioner, that'll be one of my top priorities. And everything's on the table to get the positions fully staffed in that department, whether that's better pay and benefits. I'm ready to work with the General Assembly to make that happen. Absolutely. Pay benefits has to be competitive. And that's the first thing you look at when positions aren't filled.
You've touched on this, but you said you think that this office can be a secret weapon for economic development. Explain.
Yeah. So when businesses are looking, job creators are looking to expand their operations or even relocate to North Carolina, one of the things they're looking at is, what's the regulatory environment? Is this a place where the regulations are enforced fairly, evenly, and consistently across the board? And when that environment exists, job creators want to come here and they want to bring jobs with them. And so the Labor Department can play this crucial role in creating an environment and conditions where people want to do business. And when they want to do business here, jobs come here. Jobs mean salaries paid, salaries mean mortgages paid. And so it's a rising tide that lifts all boats. And so the Labor Department can play a crucial role in that.
Do you think, we talked about the survey from CNBC and we talked about the Oxfam, do you think that you can have a state that is best in business and best in workers? And if so, why aren't we there?
Absolutely.
You've had a number of Republicans in this position for years now.
Well, absolutely, you can be best in business and best for workers, and those things go hand in hand, right? It's the businesses that create the jobs, and it's the workers that keep the businesses running. And so an approach that looks after both, especially our small businesses, is the right way to go. I mean, by and large, most people are employed in a small business in this state.
So then I'll ask you the tough question, what have your predecessors, Republicans, not done right?
Well, there's always just more to be done. I think there's been a lot of good progress. North Carolina, for instance, our rate of workplace injuries is one of the lowest in the country and below the national average. So we've been doing a lot of things right. We always can get that number lower, but things are going in the right direction, but there's more to be done.
Minimum wage right now, $7.25 nationally. Some states hike that up more. What do you think of it right now?
So I'm interested in real wage growth, and not artificial wage growth, right? Changing wages in a statute on a piece of paper, I want to go beyond that. I want to see real wage growth for our workers. And that's what I talk about. The best way to empower workers in this state is to have a hot job market, because when workers are in demand, they can dictate terms of salary, benefits, and things like that. And so that's what I'm focused on, is real wage growth for our employees in this state. The other thing to keep in mind, too, if you look at California, right? California just jacked its minimum wage for fast food workers 25%. And what happened? 1,200 pizza delivery drivers were fired overnight. Restaurants are closing. So we have to be realistic that we want real wage growth, not just wage growth on paper.
The conservative case for having too many regulations sometimes can hurt businesses. In your view, broadly speaking, are unions a good thing or a bad thing?
I think where we are with unions is exactly where we need to be, which is to say workers have a right to join and form a union if they want to. They also have the right not to join a union if they don't want to. And to me, that's the balanced approach. I think that's where the law is today. That's where I'd like to see the law stay. I think that respects both workers' rights and individual rights to decide for themselves what organizations they want to join.
Let's talk about a proposed something. It's called the federal heat standard. It would offer protections to folks working under certain hot conditions. Sounds exactly what it is. What do you think is wrong with something like this?
So I absolutely think we need to protect workers from the heat. I mean, over the years, I've had jobs working outside North Carolina summer. I know how oppressive it can be to work out in North Carolina in July and August. So we absolutely need to protect our workers. The question is, what's the best way to do it? Do we take a one-size-fits-all mandate from the Biden administration, or do we have a North Carolina solution that's tailored to North Carolina's climate, North Carolina's workers, and the jobs that North Carolina's workers do? And that's what I favor, a simplified, streamlined regulation that protects North Carolina workers with a North Carolina focus. And as Labor Commissioner, one of the very first things I'm going to do is sit down with all the stakeholders, employees, employers, and workplace safety experts to figure out what is the right North Carolina solution.
All right. Candidate for Labor Commissioner Luke Farley. Luke, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
More Flashpoint after this.